Who says monsters aren't real? Because if they aren't, then how do we explain serial killers? They may look human, they may act human, but the things they do are anything but normal. What's even more disturbing is that many serial killers seem completely ordinary before they're caught. They have jobs, friends, families, and everyday lives that make them blend in with everyone around them. In some cases, neighbors and coworkers are shocked to learn who they really are. But what if they were never caught? Would they have continued killing? Would they have gone on living normal lives while hiding something terrible from the world? Throughout history, there have been killers who managed to do exactly that. Despite massive investigations, countless suspects, and years of searching, their identities were never discovered. And to this day, many of their cases remain unsolved. So in this video, we're going to look at some of history's most mysterious serial killers. People who were never identified, never captured, and never brought to justice. Number 1. Jack the Ripper. During the late 1800s in Whitechapel, London, the streets were dark, dangerous, and perfect for criminals looking to disappear without a trace. At the time, forensic science was still very undeveloped, making it much easier for murderers and other criminals to escape justice. Crime during the night was common, but in August 1888, something far more disturbing began to happen. A series of murders shook the city. Women were being killed one after another, and by September, fear had spread throughout London. The victims were difficult to identify, and the brutality of the crimes shocked both the public and the police. Investigators worked tirelessly to find the killer. Numerous suspects were questioned, and many theories emerged, but none of them could be proven. As the investigation continued, the mystery only grew deeper. Then, in September 1888, something strange happened. Mysterious letters began arriving at police stations and newspaper offices. The writers claimed to be the murderer himself. Most people dismissed the letters as fake, but one letter stood out from all the others. At the bottom was a signature that would become infamous around the world. Jack the Ripper. From that moment on, the unknown killer had a name, and that name quickly became one of the most feared in history. Then, just as suddenly as the murders had begun, they stopped. Number 2. The Black Dahlia Killer. In 1947, a young, aspiring actress named Elizabeth Short was trying to build a life for herself in California. She was known for frequently wearing black clothing, a detail that would eventually earn her the nickname, the Black Dahlia. But on January 15, 1947, her life came to a tragic end. That day, police discovered Elizabeth's body in an empty lot in Los Angeles. The condition of the body shocked investigators and quickly became the focus of national attention. As news of the murder spread across the country, fear and speculation followed. People struggled to understand how something so horrific could happen to a young woman with dreams of becoming an actress. More importantly, everyone wanted the answer to one question: who did it? Police launched a massive investigation, but instead of finding clear answers, the case became even more confusing. People began sending fake confessions to law enforcement, while others claimed they knew the identity of the killer. With so many false leads and conflicting stories, investigators found themselves chasing countless possibilities, but making little progress. Despite years of investigation, numerous suspects, and intense media coverage, the mystery remained unsolved. And even today, nobody knows for certain who killed Elizabeth Short, the woman forever remembered as the Black Dahlia. Number 3. The Axemen of New Orleans. Between 1918 and 1919, the city of New Orleans was gripped by fear as a series of brutal murders left residents terrified to sleep at night. The unknown killer became known as the Axeman because many of the attacks involved axes or other sharp weapons. He would break into homes under the cover of darkness, attack his victims, and in some cases even leave the weapon behind at the crime scene. Police desperately tried to identify the murderer, but the investigation quickly ran into problems. There was very little evidence to work with, and forensic science at the time was still in its early stages. As a result, the killer seemed almost impossible to catch. As the attacks continued, fear spread throughout the city. Families began double-checking their locks before bed, knowing that most of the murders took place during the night. But what happened next turned an already disturbing case into one of the strangest mysteries in American history. In March 1919, newspapers received a bizarre letter from someone claiming to be the Axeman himself. The writer warned that he would kill again on March 19, but included one very unusual condition. According to the letter, anyone listening to jazz music that night would be spared. The newspapers published the message, and the city reacted immediately. When March 19 arrived, New Orleans was filled with jazz. Music poured out of clubs, restaurants, and homes across the city. People gathered together, hoping that if the letter was genuine, the music would protect them. And strangely enough, no confirmed Axeman murders were reported that night. Whether it was a coincidence or something more, nobody knows. More than a century later, the identity of the Axeman remains a mystery. No one knows who he really was, how he avoided capture, or why he seemed to have such a fascination with jazz music. Number 4. Bible John. Between 1968 and 1969, the city of Glasgow, Scotland was shaken by a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. At the center of the story was a popular dance venue known as the Barrowland Ballroom. It was a place where young people gathered to enjoy music, dance, and spend time with friends. But somewhere among the crowds was a man who would later become one of Scotland's most infamous unidentified suspects. Witnesses described him as well-dressed, polite, and soft-spoken. He had a calm manner and was known for striking up long conversations with women he met at the ballroom. At first, there seemed to be nothing unusual about him. However, those who spoke with him noticed several strange traits. He often criticized drinking, expressed negative opinions about married women, and frequently quoted passages from the Bible. These details eventually led investigators and the public to give him a chilling nickname, Bible John. As police began investigating a series of murders linked to women who had visited the ballroom, fear spread throughout Glasgow. Witnesses provided descriptions of the mysterious man, and police artists created sketches in the hope that someone would recognize him. The case quickly became one of the largest investigations in Scotland at the time. Yet despite countless interviews, witness statements, and years of theories, the man's true identity was never discovered. Then, after what is believed to have been his final known murder in 1969, he disappeared. No arrests were made, no definitive answers were found, and more than half a century later, nobody knows who Bible John really was, or what happened to him after he seemingly vanished without a trace. Number 5. The Cleveland Torso Murderer. Between 1935 and 1938, the city of Cleveland, Ohio, was haunted by one of the most disturbing unsolved murder cases in American history. The unknown killer became known as the Cleveland Torso Murderer, a name that reflected the horrifying condition in which many of the victims were found. Several bodies were discovered with their heads and limbs removed, leaving investigators faced with a series of brutal and deeply unsettling crime scenes. Most of the victims were poor, homeless, or living on the margins of society, making the case even more difficult to investigate. As more bodies were discovered, fear spread throughout Cleveland, and residents began wondering who could be responsible for such horrific crimes. Police launched extensive investigations and questioned numerous suspects, but they faced a major problem. There was very little evidence to work with. Forensic science was still limited at the time, and many of the techniques used in modern criminal investigations simply did not exist. Over the years, several individuals came under suspicion. One suspect in particular attracted significant attention from investigators and seemed highly suspicious. However, despite the concerns surrounding him, there was never enough evidence to officially identify him as the murderer. Authorities eventually connected the killer to at least 12 victims, although many investigators believe the true number may have been much higher. Then, in 1938, the murders suddenly stopped. No explanation was ever found. Did the killer die? Did he leave Cleveland and start a new life? Number 6. The Servant Girl Annihilator. During the late 1800s, many wealthy families in Austin, Texas, employed young women as live-in servants. For most, it was simply a way to earn a living. But between 1884 and 1885, fear began spreading throughout the city as a series of brutal murders left residents terrified. What made the case especially disturbing was that many of the victims were servant girls. As a result, the unknown killer became known as the Servant Girl Annihilator. The attacks were both violent and mysterious. The killer often struck late at night, breaking into homes and attacking victims with axes or other sharp weapons before disappearing into the darkness. As the murders continued, panic spread across Austin. People no longer felt safe in their own homes, and many feared that the killer could strike again at any moment. Police launched investigations and searched desperately for clues, but there was very little evidence to work with. The pressure to solve the case became so intense that numerous suspects were arrested and questioned, yet none could be definitively linked to the crimes. Then, just as suddenly as the murders had begun, they stopped. In 1885, the killings came to an end, and the mysterious murderer vanished without a trace. No one was ever convicted. No one was ever identified. And more than a century later, the true identity of the Servant Girl Annihilator remains unknown. However, one theory continues to fascinate historians and true crime enthusiasts. Some believe that after leaving Austin, the killer may have traveled to London and later become the infamous Jack the Ripper. The theory is based on similarities between the crimes. Number 7. The Monster of Florence. During the mid to late 1900s, young couples living near Florence, Italy, began to fear something that should have been completely ordinary: going out at night. Across the countryside, a series of mysterious murders left communities shocked and searching for answers. Between 1968 and 1985, an unknown killer targeted young couples, often attacking them while they were sitting inside their cars. For nearly 17 years, the murders continued. As the body count grew, the public gave the killer a chilling name: the Monster of Florence. The crimes were so disturbing that many people struggled to understand how a single individual could be responsible. Fear spread throughout the region, and what had once been normal romantic outings suddenly felt dangerous. Police launched massive investigations and devoted years to tracking down the murderer. Numerous suspects were arrested, and several people even confessed to the crimes. But there was one major problem. None of the evidence was strong enough to conclusively identify the real killer. Investigators did uncover an important clue. Many of the murders appeared to be connected to the same weapon: a .22 caliber pistol. It was one of the strongest leads in the entire case, yet even that wasn't enough to solve the mystery. Then, after 1985, the killings suddenly stopped. There were no more attacks. No explanation. No arrest. Nothing. The sudden end of the murders only created more questions. Did the killer die? Did he leave the area and start a new life somewhere else? Decades later, the case remains one of Italy's most famous unsolved mysteries, and nobody knows for certain who the Monster of Florence really was. Number 8. The Zodiac Killer. Between 1968 and 1969, police departments and newspaper offices across California began receiving a series of mysterious letters from someone claiming to be a murderer. At first, the letters seemed like little more than a disturbing prank, but that quickly changed when investigators compared the messages to actual crime scenes. The letters contained details that had never been made public. Details only the killer would have known. As a result, authorities became convinced that the writer was the real murderer. The killer's known victims were often young couples, usually attacked in isolated areas during the night. But what truly set this case apart was not just the murders themselves, it was the killer's obsession with publicity. Rather than hiding from attention, he seemed to welcome it. He regularly sent letters to newspapers, mocked law enforcement, and boasted about his crimes. In some cases, he even revealed information that investigators had deliberately kept secret from the public. As the letters continued, fear spread throughout California. But the mystery grew even deeper when the killer began sending cryptograms and coded messages. Some of these ciphers were eventually solved, revealing strange and unsettling messages. Others remain unsolved to this day. In his letters, the mysterious writer gave himself a name that would become infamous around the world: the Zodiac. And from that moment on, the unknown murderer became known as the Zodiac Killer. Although the confirmed murders eventually stopped, the letters continued for years. Then, just as unexpectedly as they had begun, the messages stopped as well. Despite decades of investigations, countless suspects, and one of the largest manhunts in American criminal history, the Zodiac Killer was never identified. Even today, nobody knows for certain who was behind the letters, who committed the murders, or what ultimately happened to the man who called himself the Zodiac. So those were 8 killers who were never caught. And the truth is, we still don't know why many of them started killing in the first place, or why they suddenly stopped. That's what makes these cases so unsettling. When serial killers are eventually caught, people are often shocked by how ordinary they seem. They have normal jobs, normal conversations, and lives that don't appear suspicious at all. But the killers in this video were never identified, which raises a disturbing question. How many dangerous people have managed to blend into society without ever being discovered? And how many secrets about these cases have been lost forever? If you enjoyed this video and want to see more mysteries like these, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads. And if you found the video interesting, don't forget to leave a like and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to keep making videos like this. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.